In Mariposas, players play groupings of butterflies migrating northwards in the spring, multiplying, expanding across the countryside, and in the fall, migrating south again. Players will score points by achieving seasonal goals, collecting life cycle cards, and having Generation 4 butterflies back in Michoacan at the end of the game. On your turn, you'll play one of the 2 action cards you have in your hand. This card will indicate how many butterflies can act and how many spaces they'll move for each action. When landing, each butterfly will exploit the advantage of the space. Most spaces will allow the butterfly to collect one of 5 different flower tokens. Waystation spaces have a token that will be turned up to show a random benefit. If you're the first player to discover the waystation, you'll roll the die and collect a random flower token. Most waystation spaces will have a life cycle card on them. Collecting all 4 of the same color will allow you to take advantage of that color's associated tile, and often those tiles will score you victory points. Some spaces on the board will be adjacent to milkweed icons. Milkweed will allow you to spend a set of flower tokens to produce a new butterfly of a higher generation, allowing you to spread out even further. At the end of each of the 3 seasons, the associated gold card will be scored. Often, the gold card will score based on having butterflies positioned in certain places on the board. After the 3rd and final season, you'll score any endgame victory points and score increasing victory points for the number of Generation 4 butterflies that you manage to migrate back to Michoacan. And as you would expect, the player with the most points has created the grandest kaleidoscope of butterflies ever to have migrated north and back to Michoacan. Mariposas. This one was designed by Elizabeth Hargrave, the same designer that designed Wingspan, which was hugely popular for the past couple of years. And I gotta start off by saying that I like this game better than I like Wingspan. This one just does it for me. When we're talking about components and the thematics of the game, number one, it is absolutely beautiful. Every single piece of artwork and graphic design and component in this game is gorgeous. I love looking at this game. It's attractive. One of the things that I have to say against it, though, is I'm colorblind, and I always got to say it. Some of the spaces on the board and the icons and things, they don't work for me as a colorblind person. I can figure them out if I have to. Like, I have to really figure them out. But I like to bring that up, right? So there are a lot of pastel colors. Other than that, it's just a gorgeous production, and I love it. Thematically, it's just a pleasant game. This whole concept of the butterflies not migrating north, and then you're trying to migrate them back down south again to score a lot of victory points. The way the mechanisms work together, it really feels like that concept of these migratory paths that these butterflies would take. It's wonderful. I just love the thematics. Even though they're a little abstract, I get the idea. I get the vibe of what's happening, and it's pleasurable. It's not aliens attacking and Cthulhu and zombies and war. This is just something pleasant to play, and I think it will be accessible to a lot of different people and attractive to a lot of different people. So talking about the gameplay, I very much enjoy the gameplay, but I will say that out of the gate, there's not a ton of strategy or depth to the game that I'm really finding. And that's not a negative here, because it's the difference between a heavy strategy game and a heavy tactics game. I think this game is a heavy tactics game. You come out of the gate, you have 2 cards on your turn, and you have to make the hard decisions of how you use those limited resources. And really the game is all deciding which one of those goals you're going to go for. You're going to collect the life cycle cards. You're going to try to keep your butterflies in a position where you can get them back down to the bottom of the board by the end of the game, or are you going to satisfy the end of season cards? And you have to use your actions wisely. You have to be counting spaces and counting actions and positioning of where all your butterflies are, and trying to play those cards smartly so that you can make those things happen. You got to decide what are the probabilities that I'm going to get cards that are going to help me get to where I need to be by the end of the turn, or I'm going to have to pivot. So there's a lot of tactical thinking in the game and not as much long-term strategy. And again, that doesn't mean that strategy is better than tactics. It's all in what you like. And I think this game just does a great job of a tactical game. Now, I will say that maybe there's not as much replayability in that respect, because there's not a ton to discover in the game. There's not a ton of strategies to invest yourselves in and try new things and try to figure out the best way to perform strategies. So discovery is kind of low. Where the replayability really comes in is in the variety of victory point goals for the ends of seasons and also for the life cycle tracks. Those are going to make variety in the game. So that's going to bring people back in. But once you've played it a couple times, you kind of get the vibe of how this game plays, and there's not a whole lot of places to go with it. I just think that it's all about those turn-to-turn tactics that make it a solid game. And also one thing that I wanted to mention is when I first played it, I felt like there wasn't enough time to do anything. And I was a little worried about that. But when I got to like mid-game to end of the game, I started to feel like, okay, yeah, I'm getting more and more out of this game as I go. I'm making smarter decisions. So there is some decision space there and some improvement states there that you can perform from game to game to utilize the small amount of actions and small amount of choices you have on a particular turn to grow and get better with it. But I think I have to say that I do have one major issue with the game, and that is that there is absolutely zero player interaction. I'm talking like zero player interaction. I said the same issue with Wingspan as well, but this one to an even greater extent. You are just playing a solo game here. There's nothing that your butterflies can do to affect your opponent's butterflies. There's really, with the exception of getting to the way stations and getting to roll the die and getting an extra flower if you're the one that turns over the token, that's really the only competition you have in this game. All of the victory point goal cards that are across the board, everybody can satisfy them. And you can't block anybody from getting them or getting to the places they need to be. So there's not a ton of competition in the game. So you can just willy-nilly do whatever you want and no one's stopping you. So that leaves no player interaction whatsoever. The only thing you're competing over is endgame victory points, which again, like it's not a bad thing that that's the way it is because there's plenty of Euro games that I've played where I don't have a problem with that. But this particular one, because it is such a simple game and a quick game to play, and it's more about the tactics, I feel like I need more interaction to make it a fuller experience. And I'm just not getting that part of it. It doesn't make it bad. It's just, I feel like it's lacking just something there. But all in all, it makes me think, who is this for, right? Heavy gamers, if you like the tactical end games, you're going to enjoy this game, but I'm not sure how much replayability you're going to get out of it because there's not a lot of room to grow. But I think this game is absolutely wonderful for casual gamers, ones that are looking for a little bit more of a thought-provoking experience, like the tactics of performing your turn, the hard decisions on your turn. Casual gamers and families, this game is perfect for them. I really do like this game a lot, despite some of the negatives that I talked about. I really like the game. And you can't argue that this thing is just absolutely gorgeous. So I recommend checking out Mariposas. I think it's an excellent, excellent game.
Thanks so much, everybody. If you've enjoyed this video, please do us a giant favor by subscribing to the channel and clicking that wacky bell icon. If you're into board games, miniatures games, role-playing games, we have a bunch of audio podcasts you might enjoy. You can find those at thesecretcabal.com or on iTunes and Stitcher.